Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I am the Inconsequential Runner, and we have with us Coach Mark. Coach Mark, welcome back. Thank you for coming back continuously.
Hi, Darcy. Yeah, thanks for having me back. Yeah, great talking about running. Enjoy it.
Isn't it fun? We've been getting lots and lots of questions. So what I would say to those that are watching the video, if you do have questions you want us to ask Coach Mark, throw them in the comments below. Most people have been emailing, but feel free to throw it in the comments, and then other people can comment on your comment, either reinforcing what you're saying or adding something else in the mix. And then we ask Coach Mark, isn't it great to be able to ask a good coach some questions that we're dying to have the answers to? And Coach Mark, again, in that theme, we've got a big one for you today, and that is running to distance or for time, especially around training. And I'll tell you a thought I had about it. So I was training with this group, and there were some elite runners in the group. When I say elite, provincial elite people that
Yeah,
they knock out 3-minute Ks like it's nothing.
yeah.
And we had a big range to those that, probably for them, getting a sub 25-minute park run, 5-minute Ks would be a pretty big event. So we had a pretty big range. Now,
Yeah.
we were doing training on this particular night, and we were doing 400 meters. And it just got me thinking that the 400 meters for the elite is very different than the 400 meters for those that are, let's say, like myself, sub-elite, because those that are elite, they're knocking out the 400 meters 63, 64 seconds. Those that are sub-elite, like me, 80 seconds, usually happy with that. But what that
Yeah.
means, the training is much shorter for those that are fitter than those. So anyway, I'm going to throw it to you in a second, Coach Mark, but it got me thinking about, well, should we be training for time or distance? Which component should we be measuring our training by? Because when we do race, it is by and large, it's for distance. Unless you're doing like
That's
a
right.
100 hour, it's all distance. But should
Yeah.
we be training in terms of time? I don't know. There's probably a whole bunch of factors. Coach Mark, you know how this works. I garble a question that we all want the answer to, and I throw it to you. So I'm going to throw it to you now. What should we be thinking about when we're training in terms of a time component versus a distance component? Coach Mark, with you.
Yeah, well, like a lot of these things, there's no real easy answer to it, and I know people do it both ways. I used to train for distance, and now I train for time. And most of the people I coach, I prefer they do it for time, but some people prefer to do it for distance, and that's fine. I work with that. But I actually changed to time as really when I shifted to Wellington, which is quite interesting because Wellington's so hilly, you see. So I'll
Oh,
get onto that in a bit. Yes, see, but what you were saying just a moment ago, that's part of it because see our bodies, as I see it, they don't have a kilometer counter in them. So training for us is essentially putting our bodies in a certain training zone for a particular period of time. So you were talking about the people who run say 3-minute Ks and people that run 4-minute Ks, 5-minute Ks at the same effort. So you could say that someone they're running for 3 minutes with their heart at 180, say, but someone else is running 4 minutes with their heart rate at 180. So in terms of a training effect, the person running for 4 minutes is spending longer in that same zone, so they're not really equivalent training.
no, yeah.
Yeah, so that sort of brings me on to when I shifted to Wellington, where how do you compare? So you could run 10K around the bays in Wellington. That could take you 40 minutes to 60 minutes, say.
Yep.
Or you could run 10K up in the hilly sort of technical trails, surrounding Wellington. That could take you 90 minutes to even 2 hours if there's, really, there's steps and things like that. But I mean, is one better training than the other? Are they comparable training? So 10K isn't always equal to 10K. Whereas if I said to someone, look, I want you to go for 1 hour, then whether they do it on the flat or the hills doesn't really matter so much, as long as, I might specify what type of thing to do, but it's more comparable. And that's and the same if you're doing a track session of 400 meters, so you're only working hard for a bit over a minute with 2 minutes, you might just be walking or very slow jogging. You're not covering a lot of distance in the whole session, but it doesn't mean it's not a good session. Whereas if you look at it, you might think, oh, I only did 4K, So it's it gets around that. So it gets around people K counting, and it standardizes things as well. So which is why I like it.
I think you raise a really good point with the K counting, and that's what I was doing before you were helping me, Coach Mark, where Ks were super important, too important, where they clouded some of the intelligent decision making you need to make about the exercise you're undertaking to make sure that you recover properly. Now, what do I mean by that? If I went out and I said to myself, I'm going to do an easy run, 15K, if I start to feel a little bit tired and fatigued after 10K, which is exactly the reason why I'm having an easy run, the best way to get through that other 5K was to speed it up, to just get it done.
Yes.
But when you say to me, run for an hour and a half, then I know I don't need to speed up because I can't speed up time. So it doesn't give me that incentive to speed up. So it's like, it's an hour and a half. I don't care if I'm running 6-minute Ks or 7-minute Ks, or if I go out in the forest and it's 8-minute Ks, it's cool. I don't need to compare it to how I was running yesterday or anything. All I've got to do is get an hour and a half on my legs. If I'm feeling dreadful or a little bit tired, I can just bring the speed back, knowing I'm still going to fulfill that training session. So that was one big positive. Another one, of course, is when we do fartleks. So flicking on its head and doing speed, all the fartlek sessions I've heard of is usually time-based. It's 30 seconds on and then 20 seconds off, or a minute off, or something like that. So those are also time-based.
That's right. It's over varied terrain. So you might do one rep that's on the flat, one rep that includes a big hill. If you were doing that to distance, then one rep wouldn't equal another rep. That'll be different amounts of time, wouldn't it? It would take you. I've had one guy I trained, he would do a loop sort of from his house, was about 12K or something, and I got him running, to time. And he said, oh, the problem is there, because he was getting fitter. As he's getting fitter, he was getting faster. And he said, I now get back. I get back to my house too early. I've got to go find another loop once I get back. I said, well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah. And look, I think that's an important point, because I think sometimes people feel if they run to time, they don't get a barometer of how they're going. But that's a key sort of thing. If your heart rate is still staying in the easy zone, but you're covering a little bit more distance, and you've got to then add to your loop, that is a good metric. It's good insight that you are getting better, you are getting faster. So running to time doesn't disguise that. It doesn't hide it.
And the other thing is, I always throw in, there's time trials and races, and they are to distance. So that is a distance thing, and that's how you measure your improvement. When you get to those, you see, it stops you being stale. You get to these things where it is distance, and then you're like, right, now I'm going to see how I am, and it's generally pretty good result.
I think to wrap this, I think if we were to speak to those that are watching this video, I think, and I'm just picking a figure here, but I think about probably 80% do run to distance. And even though I run to time, I do like to understand how many kilometers I may have done. Though when I'm in the forest, it's different, but it's kind of nice to know. So we are speaking to those 80%. So I think the message we're sharing is, if you run to time, it gives you the opportunity to just worry less. You still get the same training, but you can worry a little bit less about your training, which means you're not making bad decisions, which means your easy run stays easy. So if you're going to run to time, maybe at least do it for your easy runs. I don't know. That would be the advice I'd give. But let me throw it to you, Coach Mark, to have the final word. What would you say to people that are still just focused on distance? So unless they've run a 100-kilometer week or a 50-kilometer week, they feel like the week is rubbish, which clearly isn't the case. what would be the last bit of information you'd give them to at least consider or think about?
Well, I would so when you count your kilometers for the week, also count your time, put that alongside it at least. And that'll give you a comparable thing. And if you can do your faster sessions, say to distance if you want, but try and keep your easy runs to time. Just as you said, I think that's a good way to do it as well.
Perfect way to finish. Thank you, Coach Mark. And thanks to all those joining us. We've got a great video coming up next, so stay posted. You know how to stay posted. Click on the subscribe button. We're going to be talking about hydration and how to get it perfect to make sure it doesn't affect your race. So the timing and the volume of liquids. So we're going to give you that formula, and I know it works because it worked for me. That's something I asked Coach Mark about because my hydration was messing up my racing. Anyway, I might get into that story in the next video. So subscribe, like this video, share it with your running buddies. You know the story. It does help us. Thank you. It's sending us a bit of a thumbs up that what we're sharing with you is pretty good stuff. If you want to get in touch with Coach Mark, it is in the notes. So just under the video, there's that drop-down arrow. Click on that. Coach Mark's details are in there. If you want to drop Coach Mark a line directly and consider becoming one of his athletes, which I can attest to, you will go to the next level. Okay, that's it. We're going to wrap it. Stick around stick around on this channel for the next video on hydration. I'll say goodbye from me, Coach Mark. With you.
Yeah. See you later, Darcy. Thank you.
Thanks again, Coach Mark. Catch up soon.